So, hi everybody. Welcome to Miami Lit podcast. Today's special.
Very special.
Yeah, because you're a guest, obviously.
Yes.
But you're not a random guest.
No, I've been a guest for quite some time.
Should we share with people?
Yeah, no,
I
think a little bit of context, and then we just jump into today's topic. But
yes,
it was
2011. If the mountain won't go to
Mohammed will go to the mountain. Alrighty, so guys, Jenny was my inquiry skills teacher at Coral Gables Senior High School. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
And I know before we had started, you had wanted to tell me a story of
right.
it. So
yeah, I was asking you, do you remember the day that we were in class?
Okay.
I think it was debate class.
Because I had you for 2 periods that year.
Yeah, I was your debate coach also.
Mm-hmm.
And you were jodiendo. If you don't speak Spanish, he was being obnoxious and rambunctious and all sorts of
escandaloso.
All sorts of adjectives. He was driving me insane. So I said to you, one day, I need you to tone it down today because we're in class. One day, you're going to be able to use that voice, and it's going to be really big and really important.
You did say that. And that was like, curtailing all this energy that I was just in class going on.
And now to see what you do, it's like, I should be a prophet.
Okay, because Mohammed went to you instead of the mountain. So I appreciate that, Jenny. And I've been breaking down this year not calling you Miss Lopez.
I know.
As it's just like this like innate response to be like Miss Lopez. But I'm glad that this is a relationship that is, transcended the traditional societal dichotomy, because I was your student for a little bit. You were my student. And then now we're like trying to tread on this whole podcasting path.
Right.
And it's just, the way how it works. Pero hoy estamos hablando de Cuba. SOS Cuba, and a little bit of politics.
Well, before we dive in, let's talk about your company, Ven Vamos, which is what makes you so qualified. One of the things that makes you qualified to talk to us today about this topic and answer all sorts of questions that we have. So you founded Ven Vamos.
It was in 2018 with my partner, Jessica. And we just really did it on the base of outreach because, you see politics, you smell it, and you don't like how it looks, but you've never really tasted it. Why? Because it doesn't come to your door. It's not something that most people get to feel or touch. If you ask most people, they've never met a politician.
Right.
So that's why they have this disdain, this hate, this almost really negative energy towards the entire establishment. And rightfully so, it's really shitty, right? Yeah. It's kind of like in a state where people feel that it's very low risk and high reward. I mean, my bad, reverse. Yeah. High risk, low reward, where the high risk is their time, energy, hopes, dreams into this political system. And the low reward is there's no change.
Exactly.
There's nothing that comes out of it. So simply put, guys, Ven Vamos is like a battle cry. Vamos. So it's predicated on just let's get things out, let's get things done. And that is my background. Just I knock doors. I'm a consultant for the candidates. And I think really the topic that we're going to talk to in the Cuban context is about the elections. There's a midterm election coming next year, and there's currently elections happening now in Miami-Dade County where the Cuban discussion is at the forefront.
Right. And that's the main issue that we want to discuss today, because based on everything that has happened over the past, 3.5 weeks within the Cuban community.
July 11th was the first protest.
Exactly. So, yeah, we're looking at
almost a month.
A month coming up. So, what does that mean for Miami politics?
Well, you have to understand, Miami is the largest Cuban community of the Cuban diaspora in the entire United States. If you look at the United States in terms of size, you'll go to different places and there are large Cuban and an overall Hispanic. So obviously we're talking about Cuba, but let's not denote that these human rights violations have been seen in other countries like Nicaragua, Venezuela. And I think it's really the culmination of these voices via the internet that have brought it to the forefront now. Right. Because everything that we're going to be talking about, it's already been happening. This isn't anything new.
Yeah.
But it's a new perspective that's been brought by
I think it's
internet
the first
access.
time the world gets to see it firsthand, right? Because we have so many accounts of Cubans bringing these stories to the forefront for over the past 60 years, right? It's not new, but it's the first time people can't look away.
Most of these stories have been told to us porque mi abuela me dijo
Right.
que cuando ella estaba en Cuba, 4 de sus hermanos estaban fusilados en la calle.
Right.
That's how I know that story. Mm-hmm. I saw the pain in her eyes. She couldn't even help to tell me it. But that wasn't recorded. That wasn't etched in a textbook. Mm-hmm. And that is why this Cuban situation...
There were no pictures.
That's why Americans in America have treated the Cuban situation very differently than Cubans. Of course, they have an innate bias. It's their natal country. But moreover, understanding that pain and understanding what it is for a Cuban American to leave their natal lands because they were on the wrong side of politics is something that few people can understand. But just besides that, the Cuban problem to everybody else in the United States has a different flair. They blame it on the embargo. Mm-hmm. They say that it's because of X, Y, or Z reasons, but then you hear other things. And that kind of conversation, both national and local, plays a big role in these upcoming elections.
Right. Now that you brought up the embargo, what do you think about that?
Well, look, people can blame any number of reasons. So I take the position that, and look, I'm going to be very frank to everybody, eso uno come mierda. Perdóname por decirlo así. But the whole point is that this space that we've trying to create is one where I can take my position, but we welcome the dialogue. I'm going to take.
Thank you for saying that.
Because you have to understand that I studied politics at FIU, and because politics is a very emotional conversation, people need to understand that we're still two individuals. The greatest thing about America and the greatest fault of Cuba is that while here we can speak openly and honestly, and because you believe that communism's cool and great.
I don't believe it.
When I say you, I mean...
You have low battery.
No, that's fine. But when I mean you, I mean like a vague you, not you, Jenny, of course.
I know, but just clarifying. I do not.
Of course. I mean like you, anybody, can believe in anything. But in Cuba, you believe in the wrong thing and you get beat. Mm-hmm. You get your rights taken away from you. Yeah. And there are systematic ways in which this is done. And I take the position that the embargo is not one of them. The embargo doesn't prevent the Cuban government from giving internet to its people. Mm-hmm. The embargo doesn't prevent people from getting beaten up in the streets. Yeah. That's not the embargo's fault. Right. That's the Cuban regime's fault.
Yeah. So, I share that opinion with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I don't think the embargo has anything to do with what's happening to the people in Cuba. And I think it's too simplistic to say that it has anything to do with what's been going on for over 60 years. It's
a complex issue. It's led upon generations. A generation's 20 years, and the Cuban people have been living through this for 63. That's 3 generations of the same thing. And these things are done deliberately. So when you look at an authoritarian regime, what are the tools that they use to keep people under servitude? And that's why I credit this is a great example where the Second Amendment is one of the greatest things that the country has provided for its citizens. Absolutely. In contrast to Cuba. If Cubans in Cuba tuvieron pistola, we would not be here right now.
We would not be having this conversation. And, to just take a little dig at into history, Cuban history, we got our independence from Spain without guns. We had machetes. So we know how to make things happen. But the people, like you just said, they have absolutely nothing. They don't even have a knife worth cutting
you have to see where the access begins. Right. In a free market economy where the individual has a right to property, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. You can use your resources, the labor that you've created into this economic system, and reap from it. Right. But the problem is that socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, your labor, your property is property of an individual, the state. Right. So you don't own the labor you toil.
Exactly.
And that system creates a lack of incentive. So, por ejemplo, the Cuban who studies and goes to university in the island, spends all their life studying to become this great engineer, still only makes about $35.
Right.
So where is the incentive in this system for its people to want to be bigger, higher, when a person who fixes a fan makes way more than an engineer?
And now that you bring up education, it's always interesting to see how we hear, no, because at least education in Cuba is great. But I've never heard people talk about higher education in Cuba. Elementary school, you're safe. You're getting a worthwhile education. It's fine. But once you start going into upper levels, once you get into high school, things get a little shady. And you're looking at all these requirements. If you're intending to go to college, you only have 3 or 4 careers to choose from. It's not like you can say, let me get this free.
You're selected into
right. Let me get this free education and become whatever I want. That's not how it works. This free education only gives you 4 choices, and you have to prove that you're with the system, that you support everything in order to be given these 4 choices, which, by the way, they're doctor, an accountant, a teacher, and I don't recall the 4th one. Somebody, I'm sure, will.
Well, let's talk about doctors for a second, right? So one of the biggest problems in Cuba in terms of human rights violations is how they use Cuban doctors, which, by the way, Cuban doctors are fire. So everybody, and this is a joke because everybody tiene un enfermero, un doctor en su familia. Right. But the reason why is because exactly that. They push you towards these careers. Cuban medicine is revered. Why? Because we're very educational, we're very skilled. But here's the issue. And it goes back to what I said about labor and who owns it. Right. The Cuban doctor is basically exploited internationally. Okay, the Cuban government goes to other countries in these humanitarian-like missions, and they exploit the labor while the Cuban government takes all of the earnings of the doctor's services provided, because the Cuban government is a business. It operates like a business. And why do they have a monopoly on its people, on the 12 million people there? Because all of them work for that one business. But it's not because of choice. It's not because they recruited or they were competitive. And it's not because of any of that.
So now the question becomes, how great is that free education?
Well, in terms of medicine, look. And
I mean in
its value?
At what you're asking people in an intrinsic level to give up in exchange for this free education.
It's not worth it, of course, because
it's not free.
No, of course not. And freedom will never be free.
Right.
That's why people die for it. Yes. Because freedom will never be free.
Yes.
And the fact that in whatever revolution, so when Fidel came to power, he promised the people all of these things that never came to fruition. He said, don't worry, aquí, I'm going to take this now, but it's because...
Right. You're no longer going to be poor. Once I take the stuff from the rich and I help everybody out that deserves it.
And that never came.
That was a big pitch.
And
that never came.
There's a couple of perspectives that we could take. And I'd like to stay on the elections and what stays into Miami, because obviously as 2 Cuban Americans, we feel very passionate about this issue.
Right.
But more importantly, it's how is this going to affect the future?
Yes.
Because, people see the news, people see, and that's really why I think the best thing that the Cuban people can get, or need rather said, is internet. The more we post, the more we keep using this hashtag, the more that this is in every corner of the web, we will continue to grow allies. They will continue to share, and these atrocities will no longer be something that they can hide, because it will get to a point where the Cuban government will be faced with so much pressure that they will have to give in.
Do you think that day will come?
Mira, the Cuban in me and the very hardliner says, of course not. Because look at history, 63 years, oldest dictatorship.
It's been a long time.
But at the beginning of this, we didn't have the resources at hand. And there is one topic that I'd like to lightly touch upon in terms of financials. So if you talk about the remittance, or como se dice, cuando tú envías dinero a tu familia.
Yeah,
it's remittance, right?
Right?
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's when you send your family members
help,
money or material help, like medicines and clothing items.
This isn't a Cuban thing. This is a thing that happens across all immigration groups, right?
Right.
So when you talk about a regime where, because they are a monopoly, a one-sided unilateral actor, okay, you in America send your money to the Cuban government. Right. The Cuban government then takes 10% off the top and then gives it to your family whenever they feel like it, however they feel like it. So I want to applaud the president of El Salvador. He is the first president and the first country where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is a legal tender. Bitcoin could be the financial solutions for the Cubans in Cuba. Why? Because the government can't touch that money. There isn't a system yet, but that is something that ought to be explored. Because think about it like this. You can send Bitcoin at any time of the day.
That's true.
There is no fee because that 10%, the government will never have access to it. And the best part is it is unregulated.
Right.
So the Cuban government literally can do nothing about it. And the best part is they already use American dollars and they can transfer. Again, I'm no crypto expert as of yet. I want to shout out Javi because Javi's the crypto expert. But these are the solutions that I think will be coming in the future. The development of it, I don't know. And I'm very hopeful on the financial side. On the political side, out there, I'm not in Cuba. I'm in America. I can talk to you about the American and what it's going to mean for us here.
Yes, which is a really big question. How is all this going to play out? Because we know we've seen like a big divide across the country for a couple of years now. It's nothing new. But there's a subset of that. There's a big divide within the Cuban community itself, which meaning, by that I mean, if you're Cuban, you're automatically assumed that you are a conservative or a Republican, and that's how your vote is going to go, which is not a good or bad thing.
I love this topic.
Oh, I'm glad.
I love this topic because as a Cuban-born with two Cuban-born parents that migrated that both are registered Democrats, I have been at the epicenter of this dichotomy that you're referring to.
Right. And it's super interesting to me, which is why I have so many questions.
And I've worked for a million Republican candidates, and I identify as a Republican.
Yeah.
So because it's not tied into my ethnicity, it's tied into my experience.
That is the key. That you just hit the nail on the head. I feel like when there's so much judgment between us going, well, of course you're gonna vote Republican. You're basing your past. That's how you're basing your vote. You're not progressive enough. You don't understand the politics in the United States in order to vote anything other than Republican. It just seems like exactly what you said.
Well, let's start with this. Who's voting, right? So when we talk about elections, I wouldn't tell my clients to go talk to people that would never vote. Our job isn't to inspire, unfortunately. Think about it like this. Let's say there's 1 million voters in a district. I'm making up an imaginary district because I don't have the numbers of all the districts readily available. So I'll make one up and we'll still apply the same sort of speak strategy, right?
Right.
There's 1 million people in a district. If we look at the historical turnouts on how many people are registered to vote to how many people vote, it's usually anywhere between 10 to 12%. In presidential years, it spikes because there's a lot of hype. People come out.
People tend to care a little more.
So you only have 10% of people in this box that actually care enough to go and cast a vote. So that disproportionately affects how campaigns spend money. So where do they spend their money? On the highest quality voter. Like I said, my job is not to inspire. My job is to win an election. And I let data guide that decision. So you'll find that the people who tend to vote in elections are older. Los cubanos viejos siempre votan. And why? Because to them, it is a right. And that is a result of experience.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Sorry to interrupt you. But I remember my first time that I got to vote. My father made it an event out of it. Like we all went together.
Celebration.
It was a celebration.
I'm exercising my freedom.
Yes, we all went together. And the whole time he kept, telling me, do you understand
the importance of this moment?
Do you understand what this means? That you get to vote at, I think I was 19 years old.
Whatever the case is. And that love definitely is tied and akin to conservative values because it's the preservation of freedom at the end of the day. So call it what you want, but that's the experience. And that is a result of not having that in our home country.
Knowing what it's like.
Si el cubano tuviera el voto, si el cubano pudiera ser empresario, they would have never left. We love where we come from. We wish we could go back.
Yes.
But we can't because we prefer our freedom. And that relationship with your ethnical background will shape the way how you vote. Of course, other ethnic groups experience the same thing. Obviously, we're talking about the Cuban example. So let's talk about one thing that really shaped the Cuban Republican stereotype. In 2000, on Thanksgiving, a Cuban boy by the name of Elian Gonzalez washes upon the Key West shores. Cubans have been leaving on boats and raft well before El Mariel and way before. It is one of the most dangerous things a person can do. And it's not just because of what the act is, but why they did it. Nobody gets on a boat with nothing unless they're scared, unless they have no alternative. Unless
they rather die than continue living the life that they had.
And that search for freedom, the Cuban people have been yearning for it, and they will even risk their lives. So this boy Elian washes up after, I believe there were 8 on the boat, and he was, a part of the 8, and the other 7, they die.
They vanish.
They literally die, and he washes up. It's almost like a miracle story, right?
It's mythical.
It's almost literally mystical.
Because there was a dolphin involved. It was like he made it by some miracle.
And
he shouldn't be alive.
Right. So then you start talking about how Americans, or better said, how the American government handled this incident, what the Cuban people wanted, and then what the outcome was. So at the time, you have to understand Bill Clinton is about to be up for re-election. There's a great documentary made by Billy Corben. It's called 357 Votes, which really, really highlights this entire thing. But I'll briefly touch upon things that you can also see in that documentary. Right. I think that's a great reference point, and Billy Corben is a great filmographer that really captured what happened. Because during this time, we have to understand, and this is federal politics, but I think this example will highlight why what happens federally still affects local politics, even if the two candidates have nothing to do with each other, right? Because that Republican, it's like the Scarlet's letter.
Yeah.
It's literally like a Scarlet's letter. Whatever happens nationally, you will either enjoy or will be your demise. Like, it depends. So at the time, 2000, Bill Clinton is seeking re-election, and was it not Al Gore? It was his opponent. The point is, the Cubans didn't like his response.
Right.
Cubans in Miami, they believed that the child should stay in Miami because he was escaping persecution. 7 people died.
He lost his mother.
To get this freedom, to have the opportunity. But the Americans, or rather said, the American government, took a very a different approach. That's what I like to say, because I have my own personal opinions on it. But the approach was, he's not American, and because he came onto these shores illegally, he needs to go and be deported back to his country.
Well, and to add to that, there was also the whole thing that he didn't have parents here. His mother died.
Was rightfully so.
And his father was still on the island. So from their perspective, the right thing was he loses his mother.
To return back.
He needs to go be with his father. Right?
Yes.
And in a way, you go, okay, well, again, I kind of understand, but this
and
poor
boy, right. And that
this is a huge but.
But that but is the difference ideologically for Cubans and that voter population right there.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like, even us who are Cuban Americans, even born there, sensibly know, any other case, but because this ethnic group, this large voter base, you hurt their feelings, Bill.
Yeah.
You hurt their feelings, Bill.
Right.
So because of all of that, we get this, Cubanos no se olvidan. Cubans don't forget nothing.
No, we're like elephants.
Yeah.
We will remember everything.
So it was, in the documentary even said, I remember just now, el voto castigo, or castigo del voto. It's the punishment vote.
Yeah.
We don't care.
We're not voting for you.
Look. Look, I'd even argue that most Cubans are very centrist. Yes, we have the conservative because Cubans can be Catholic, or Cubans can be very religious, right? And Hispanics generally tend to be conservative because we love the idea of family and property. But regardless,
No,
okay.
we're good.
But regardless, Cubans like if you ask Cubans, is abortion okay? Most will be like, yeah, I don't care. If you talked about the legalization of marijuana, you'll be like, I don't care unless you get like, but so they're not like, we're not talking about people that are super like, by definition, like these religious zealots that no.
Exactly.
The stereotype of Republicans is because it's more of a FU to Democrats for us.
Right.
Than it is I'm super Republican. Granted.
Most of us identify with that part of conservatism that you were mentioning a couple minutes ago. You know, the Second Amendment, the right to freedom, all these things are, I think, I'm not claiming to speak for everybody, but from what I can tell, it's usually what really qualifies us as being more conservative.
Right. So
than all the other things.
I mean, if you just take like the ideology chart, right?
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of the things that we desire, right, or the lack of things
that we value, a lot of the things we value,
or better said, the things that are missing on the island, is what we hold dear and true. And I guess the reason why we are seen as very zealous or very hardliners in this case is because we would never want to lose it. Because you know that saying that if you don't know what you have until it's gone?
Right.
They never had it. We got it. We know it's great. We don't want to lose it.
We're willing to die for it.
Yes. So let's get back to the elections in terms of here. So right now we have the city of Hialeah. You have city of Miami. You have Miami Beach. And I believe you have city of Homestead. And well, before, because city of Coral Gables has a weird not November thing election. That's a whole different discussion. But we like city of Coral Gables government around these parts.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
We support.
No, hell yeah, that's my clients. You'll go. But more importantly, there's a couple of city elections. So you have to understand, there is no Republican and Democrat at the ballots when you vote this year because they're all local races. That's going to come next year in the midterms. But we are, like I said, the largest Cuban community in the United States. The only thing people want to hear is, what do you think about Cuba?
What are you going to do?
So what do you think if I knock on the door of a woman in Hialeah talking about ese embargo? What would you think will be the response? No, señora, mira, no. Es que es la culpa de los Estados Unidos.
I'm speechless.
No, porque los catos son buenos.
Te va a decir hasta de más que te vas a morir. She's going to let you have it.
She's going to curse me out.
She's going to let you have it.
She's going to be like, you're the wrong one.
She's going to be like, how dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you come here and use freedom for that BS?
So what do you think would be the framing? Because when you talk about candidates and campaigns, the most important thing for them is the messaging. Politics is about the frame.
Right.
You know, and I hate to... Because I love it. I do like it, but at the same time, I'm not here trying to what was man, you taught me these words. So
I don't know.
I'm not colloquial. What's the word when euphemize, or what's the euphemism? Like you try to make it sound less than it really is.
Right.
I'm not trying to what's the word?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. We're in transit. We're in a career transition. But the euphemism.
Yes.
Which is, I completely forgot. That was really funny. But look, what I'm just trying to say is that
it's good to have fun with such a serious topic because this stuff can get really, really intense.
No, and also the politics is boring. Let's be honest. Like most people don't care, and that's again going back to the reason of the electorate. If 50% of everybody that could vote voted, this would be like an ESPN.
Right.
Did you see John McCain? And he was coming in. But there isn't this interest around it because people innately don't care. I believe that starts with our culture. Because when you live, and this isn't to take shots at critical race theory or anything, because this is not.
No, we can't do that. We can do that. We can do that.
But critical race theory teaches people to hate America. I bottomly believe.
Yes, it does.
And hating where you come from is not the answer.
Right.
And that's going to make you not care. And not caring leads to not participating. And what we need to be teaching our kids is to participate. Porque
Amen to that.
And this is a cultural thing, right? Because the stigma of F America. America is a symbol of freedom. Why is it that in Hong Kong and Cuba and in Nicaragua and Venezuela, the American flag is thrown proudly before their own flag? Because they know that what you could achieve here is amazing.
And here's the thing. When we talk about the greatness of America, that doesn't mean that we disregard its flaws.
Or that we're better
Every nation
than
has
others.
flaws, because this is a living, moving entity that has many parts. No one's saying let's ignore all the flaws. No, we're not saying that at all. But we are saying we need to recognize that we live in a special country and it deserves to be respected and it deserves to be treated in a way where people aren't shame or feel ashamed to say, well, I live in the United States, my country sucks. No, your country doesn't suck. You need to grow up.
Well, when you talk about radical positions, right, the same way how Cubans can be seen as hardline rights, the hard left suggests that America is at the focal point of all that is wrong in the world. It is the greatest of evils. And you know, evil still exists in this world, of course, but there's a lot of evil that comes from a lot of different places. Yeah. And what I think the biggest evil that the Cuban government does to its people is that property doesn't exist. Property at its point, and this is something that I learned in my political theory classes, at the end of the day is what's the ultimate motivator. We need things, we want things, and we work for things. So when you take away the ability to have a thing or be able to have ownership of stuff, ideas, then you de-incentivize human purpose. Absolutely. Altogether. We are designed to create, to build, and to innovate. But if you create a system where you know that if you try to do all these things, you're going to be met with resistance. When you try to go against the grain, you're going to be, it's modern day witch hunt. Just because, you know, and I'm not saying that back in the 1500s, they weren't on some crazy witchcraft, but not of my opinion. First and foremost, property, I have ownership of my thoughts. You can't come in here and tell me what to think.
Yeah.
But
unless you live in Cuba.
Because you're indoctrinated. Yeah. And I think that's where the song was so powerful. And let's talk a little about the patriayvida song. Yeah. Because when you talk about the anthem, you're in our anthem, we're told that it's my country or I'm dying.
Right. Because it cost us so much to get freedom from Spain. Spain was hanging on to us like, you know, a bear clawing its prey. We were one of the last places for Spain to, quote unquote, let go of. Right. To gain our freedom. Yeah, to get our independence. It literally cost us blood, sweat, and tears, like it does every other country. But the point is that everyone had gained their freedom except for us. So that's why our anthem is so ingrained into it. Like, we are having our country, we're having our freedom, or we are dying. But this is not going to happen again. You know? And here we are. It's happening again, which is so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah. So when, we jump around a lot and we talk about different topics because there's a lot of facets to this. Yes. The regime, if you just look at what Cuba does to its people, it's a systematic. And I think this is a great time or a great point for me to interject my qualms or my beef with the BLM movement. Not the phrase, but what they had posted or released and the statement. Yeah. Black Lives Matter. They've always mattered. They'll always will matter.
All lives matter.
No. But about this. A black life here. Yeah. A black life there. A black life in space.
A black life in Cuba.
A black life virtually. Look. They all matter. So I find it abhorrent that when they put all this shift onto the United States, it almost shows them institutionally that they have no understanding. It's not about what they said. And, everybody's taking a position. So when people say that these Republican Congress, like Maria Salazar, Carlos Jimenez, and Mario Diaz-Balart are being opportunistic on the Cuban discussion, well, so is BLM. Okay? Yeah. Because everybody in politics, in this public affairs, is going to talk about what their citizens want. At the end of the day, this is at the forefront of the issue. It is not opportunistic. It is what is going on. Like, what I'm trying to say is, at that point, every single political shift and move can be said to be opportunistic. And it is an opportunity.
Right, but at the same time, it's like a responsibility. If you hold a certain place within politics, you need to address such a current issue. I think, again, it's too simplistic to label it opportunistic. It may be in some way.
Because people will go back to the point of, oh, they're just, XYZ. If people, and this is why I believe outreach is the most important part of a campaign. If I could have a machine, look, watch this. If I could just have a machine that I could take the candidate and make like 5 clones and just charge the client to use my cloning machine, I would win every election in America.
Right.
Because it's about, if the individual, the voter, got to meet the product. Think of it in business. The candidate is the product. The candidate can sell himself or herself better than I ever could, even though they're going to hire me and my team to knock 1 million doors. Right? But because one person can't meet their entire district, my job exists. But that is how you would win an election. Because the candidate needs to be, if everybody in the district make the candidate, they wouldn't think politics was shitty. Because here's the thing. Let's say for the people that know you, know me, you ran for office. They'll be like, yeah, I hate politics, but Jenny's kind of cool.
Well, I don't know if anyone's called me cool before, but I'll take it.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They'll be like, man, I hate this.
Right.
But I know Nadir.
There's a personal.
And that is why there is no, that's the high risk, low reward. There's no reward. I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm going to give you this vote. And what do I get in return?
I don't trust you.
Exactly. All those things come into play. So with that being said, in this election coming up, the Cuban topic is going to be what separates candidates. And what I believe is you're going to see Republicans and you're going to see Democrats both curtail the Cuban way.
Right.
The only way that's going to differentiate them, and here's the issue, Democrats, it's really the Democrats' election to win and it's the Republicans to lose. Republicans just can't mess up. Like, you're already in a predominantly Republican district, not because of the registrations, by performance. Let's make a distinction. There are more Democrats registered in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah.
Period. In most metropolitan cities like Tampa, Orlando, even Tallahassee and Gainesville, because of the universities, the majority of the people are Democrats. There's like a 60-40 Democrat-Republican split. So there's just bottom line more Democrats. But who votes? 10% out of all that 60-40 split, only 10% of these people vote. Who are Republican, who are Democrat. And that's why the base, the Cuban base in Miami is shifting. So when you talk to me about the whole like Republican versus Democrat, that's shifting. It's eroding. But the better analogy is it's eroding.
Right.
Because in about 20 years, when I have kids and you're going to have grandkids, okay?
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Yeah.
Your grandma and my grandma, unfortunately, won't be here anymore.
Right.
And this is the change. It's slow, but it's evident because the base, the majority of the Cuban, these hardline Republicans are above 60 years old. Within 40 years, this new Cuban image or this new Cuban identity is going to be Democrat and Republican.
Right.
But there's going to be a larger Democratic population because even the artists of the San Isidro movement, both here and there, have very liberal values. And liberal values are not bad. And I actually think they aid this very revolutionary style uprising because I do think you need something different.
I agree with that.
Like right, left, whatever it is, I think it's about timing. And that's really the same thing in politics, right? The way how we win elections isn't because of who spends more money. It's about strategy and timing. So the reason why internet is so important is because it creates opportunity. The reason why things have kind of calmed down is because we don't see anything no more. It's getting quiet. But the reason why everybody went crazy July 11th was because that was flooded. Your entire feed and timeline, Cuba. If that sticks around for a year or whatever, it'll happen. Yeah. But we're going down.
That's so unfortunate. How do we keep this issue in the forefront so that politicians feel that weight, that responsibility to address it now and next year and in the following years that are?
I think it's the same reason why any movement can be successful or unsuccessful. If you look back at, and again, this isn't going back to BLM's statement, but more about, let's look at BLM's case study. BLM happened in multiple cities at the same time as a response to one traumatic experience.
Right.
The Cuban January 11th incident was a response that oh my God, I'm so sorry. The July 11th spark, let's call it the spark, happened as a result of a traumatic incident, which was toda la internet se cortó, right? Yeah. So then you have all of these cities sparking up.
Well, and we had the so-called president calling upon a civil war.
And that too, right? So it's a traumatic experience, spark. I'm just trying to draw the similarities, okay?
Right.
We're not talking about the ideas. We're talking about what happened and where these things fall. And to answer your question of what would be the best case scenario or what should they do or what could help them or the movement is centralized communication. I know it sounds so simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do in politics. Yeah. And that's organize people, logistics, getting everybody on the same page. There is no authority in terms of a movement.
Right.
Black Lives Matter
Can we count on Ven Vamos for that?
Bro, we will be out there, but at the end of the day, even Ven Vamos needs a leader. Because I could say everything X, Y.
I'm looking at one.
Wait. But what I mean, but let me get to you why this wouldn't work. And I agree. Look, I could go out there right now and champion every single issue. But at the end of the day, the people need somebody that they can rally. Nobody knows me. It needs to be a figure, an active, prominent, maybe not an individual, maybe a union, a collection, but it needs to be a legitimate force. And that legitimacy is the same reason why the Constitution has so much power. Because it's legitimized not by a law, not by a decree, not by nothing. It's because people vest their power and trust into it. And that's why I wouldn't be able, because I'm 24 and I have no name recognition. It needs to be something established, something that everybody can rally behind. And not to say that I can't rally people, but it's not going to be every Cuban in this world, unfortunately.
I don't know.
So going back to answer
do it.
No, and I appreciate it. I think I can do it too. But look, what I'm trying to say more is that centralized organization means that everybody is on the same page. Everybody is executing because of the same purpose. Right. And at scale, that is extremely hard to achieve. The reason why the Black Lives Matter movement got so many holes poked into its organization, its ideals, it called into question the ethicalness. They even changed laws of protesting because they're like, why do you have to steal and break property to prove a point? But if they would have gotten their messaging, and then here's the other thing. You could organize all you want, but if people don't listen to your message, what are you going to do? Because like I said, there's no law. It's not enforceable. Yeah. People invest, and that's why the Constitution is one of the greatest pieces of paper ever created, because it's just a piece of paper, but not because, or its value isn't because of the paper it's written, the ink or the material.
It's intrinsic.
It's because of what people have put its value in. That's the same reason why Bitcoin's valuable. Again, not the point. But it's side note, but that's where we put our value.
Yeah.
And the solution is organization. But that takes a lot of things that even I wouldn't be able to consult on. Even I'd argue even the people in Congress couldn't, because it takes a village, and it's really the unification of a people. And that's why the song is truthfully a uniter. It's a glue. Patriayvida is a slogan that will live in a textbook. Right. Patriayvida is almost like a duh. Mm-hmm. But now that it was ushered, it's a uniter. So it's things like that. It's occurrences like that. And I believe the San Isidro movement could be the key because they have been the spark. Right. So for those that don't know, San Isidro is a group of artists that started locally in Cuba talking about these limitations because these artists, there was a law. And I did a podcast with a woman and her artist daughter, Madam Kai. That
we'll link it down below for those of us that are watching us on YouTube.
Because they were activists, and that's where I met them at the San Isidro stuff. But there was a law in Cuba about a year ago passed that if you're an artist, that you wouldn't be able to freely promote your stuff without express consent from a cultural, like Departamento de Interior. Like you're an artist. Okay, that's the office where you need to get permission to be an artist. Yeah. Because they decide what art is, what's good or bad, and they're like, what is this? You can't control what's in my brain. Mm-hmm. And that's why in political theory it's about property, right? Ownership. Okay, man, I can't own the house. Okay, I can't own my business. Okay, I can't own the cow. I can't own my labor. Mm-hmm. And now I can't control my thoughts. Mm-hmm. You stop being human. Yeah. On a moral level.
On every level. If you look at what it has done to Cuban society, there's full-on degradation where it's going to take generations for us to recover as a people. Our culture is completely broken. It's shattered. People have morality is basically, I don't want to say non-existent, but it's very low because people have had to do crazy things to survive.
And that's why you need the internet, because it keeps the vibes, it keeps the morale. Because cuando tú ves el otro cubano fajando, luchando, it inspires you. Mm-hmm. It makes you want to keep trying. Yeah. And that's why the internet is really a key to all of this.
So do you think our president should do something about that?
I wanted to set the record straight. Joe Biden was in fact my client in 2020, but I do not support his positions with Cuba right now.
Ouch,
and this is what I mean about creating an environment and having a political dialogue that covers all perspectives. Mm-hmm. Because while many people, and because I got backlash because I'm a Republican, I have my Democratic client.
I think that's so interesting that you were able to set aside your personal beliefs for your job.
My clients don't pay me to believe. My clients pay me to win.
Like a true Republican.
Okay, so
like a true capitalist. Very well said.
Ven Vamos.
Bro, cheers to that. Cheers to that.
Alrighty, so what I'm really trying to get to the point of this is that when I run for office, I'll put my ideals forth. But my job as a consultant is to champion my clients' ideals and execute them the best I see fit in an outreach strategies that we create. Right. So how does outreach tie with changing a government? Mm-hmm. Unification of messaging. The reason why BLM had so many holes poked in is because their messaging was all over the place. We're peaceful.
No, you're not.
It's about the cops.
No, it's not.
It's about what the cop did.
Yeah.
Estaba everywhere. And then, so here's the thing. So as a Cuban American who marched in Little Rock, Arkansas, when George Floyd died, it's frustrating because we marched with solidarity to you. I might not be black, but I ain't white. And more importantly, even if I'm not you, right, I can still support you. Our communities support each other.
But even before we get to that, that support that you're talking about, if you just look at just a tiny bit of Cuban history, we have such a rich African heritage.
Todo el mundo en Cuba mulatto, we're mixed. We're
blended in. But even if you're not mixed, even if you're European, the diaspora is so rich that it's in your culture. It may not be in your blood, but it's in your culture. We are extremely linked with our African roots. extremely. So to say that Black Lives Matter here, but not in Cuba, that's a tough pill to swallow.
And it's not that was said explicitly,
but it was implied.
It is at the result of the ignorance of that statement, because anybody can see that there is a motive, and the language in which that statement is written is based and derived in Marxism. It's derived in an ideology, which is what, and this is why messaging, and not just messaging, organizations like Black Lives Matter that will continue to be around for a prolonged period of time.
That's bad news.
No. But listen, because you have to separate the actual saying and then the for-profit company. And I'm referring to the for-profit company, not the saying. But they're genius marketers.
Oh, for sure.
Because the messaging has been.
Show me a Marxist government ideal or organization. No, that is not genius in their verbiage, in their wording, and how they approach people in the community. They're all extremely smart because they target and pinpoint our natural humanistic instinct, like Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. You go, oh, I'm down with that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's super, super smart.
When you separate, and this is the point I'm trying to make, when you separate the movement to the actual cry, they're two very different things.
Yeah.
The organization is rooted in Marxist ideals because of the people that run it. Right. It's crazy how it's all about, and I'm not trying to I don't want to spin this into the BLM. So let's just finish on this point. But the leaders of the organization live in $5 million homes, collect millions of dollars in paychecks from the donations that you and I gave to the organization, and yet none of that money goes into actual Black communities. So the organization is completely different than the phrase, and spinning it back onto elections, onto the politics of it. Let me talk to you a little bit about individual politicians to look out for. And when I say look out for, I don't mean like lurking. I'm gonna give I'm gonna give my kudos and my critiques.
Yes.
How about that on certain elected officials? If you and then let's start small to big, and we'll kind of fast fire them. So if you look at the city of Hialeah, I love Steve Bovo. He's running for mayor. He recently lost his election last year to Daniela Levine Cava, which I always say to my people is like a mini Trump versus Hillary, but in Miami.
That's interesting.
And it's literally the same thing. The Democratic woman, the Republican man, and you really saw that. So when you look at Steve Bovo, I know, and the community knows, that he is a true Republican, a true Latin, a true Hispanic, a true family man. Why? In terms of his politics, most people running campaigns are very, very stern, very, very hard line, very positioned on an issue during the primaries.
Right.
Because they want the people, because they know that they need the most amount of votes to become the nominee for the actual, for the general, because there's two phases to an election, right? And then, because it's a general and they need a majority, they will slowly but surely start taking a more centrist view on that issue to appease lesser Republicans, lesser Democrats that start trying to swing votes.
Right.
Because they have different objectives. What Steve Bovo did last year is, instead of pivoting, which most elected officials do, he doubled down. So Steve Bovo ran a very pro-police,
right,
and saying to Daniela that, and let's be completely honest, Daniela has proven herself very well. I'm honestly very impressed with DLC's performance, and she's a moderate, man. Like, but in that race, she was Antifa. She was pointed as she's going to defund the police. She's increased the police budget. She is pro-police. Like I don't know where the whole...
So this is a stupid question. Why does she put out that perception of herself?
That perception of herself was not her doing. It was her opponent's doing. Because if
Yeah.
Of course, I want my voter base to think that you're going to be these Antifa, I'll let all hell raise loose in my communities, XYZ, because that's a great strategy. Yeah. So Steve Bovo doubles down. And it mirrors and again, nationally, you're having all these protests. You're having all this police hate, Blue Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? So that's a good strategy. I thought that was a good strategy. And because at that moment, I also thought that, and again, my personal views are not what I get paid to do. But I believe that Trump would have won the election. I'm not gonna do the whole election, no sé qué. That's not this podcast.
No,
but
we'll save that for another day.
No, but I believe that Trump was gonna win the election, and that same was going to help Steve Bovo because again, it was almost like a little mini example.
Yeah, it's a microcosm. Of what's happening nationally.
But I credit Daniela's victory to a very robust campaign. I actually got to see the campaign from within when I worked in the office for Biden. And honestly, her team was incredible, well-oiled machine, and her resources were being spent properly and well. So I just think she had an amazing system, honestly, just a great system, right? And that's not to say that Steve didn't have a great system. Steve had an amazing system. And Steve even had more union support than DLC, like the firefighters and the police, because obviously all this I'm sorry, but all this rabia contra la policía fed into the narrative that if you didn't vote for the only Republican, that you were going to hurt the police. The police feel this sentiment because at work, they're getting all this smoke, which is true. Being a cop is hard nowadays. Being a cop is hard.
I can't imagine.
So the union fully backed Steve, as they should. And again, that was a smart play. I'm not here speaking of what was better or not. I'm just criticizing from my opinions of what I saw and then what I thought was good and bad. So that's the Steve one. When you talk about the city of Miami, what Francis Suarez is doing is, listen, just before the Cuban stuff, the Francis Suarez stock has been.
Yeah.
He met with Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is a favorite of the Republican Party to run for president. I feel that Donald Trump will run again, but if you look at the top 3 contenders and again, we're talking federal, but it does influence local.
Yes.
Because Francis Suarez is widely popular with Republicans and Democrats, like across the board.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a young, attractive, apart from that, a young, attractive, smart, networking, business attracting, conglomerate, tech savvy, cafecito sipping genius.
Right.
Because he podcasts too. It's just cafecito talks. But he brings, remember how I told you how I podcast to leverage businesses and stuff?
Yeah.
Francis does the same thing, but he has more notoriety, more scale. So that's why his impact's harder. But it's the same concept. I'm going to invite these San Francisco businesses on my show and convince them to move all their businesses into Miami. Francis Suarez has grown the tech industry in Miami 29% in 1 quarter.
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
Amazing.
And tech jobs are one of the highest paying jobs in any industry. So all those jobs that he's bringing over are 6-figure jobs. And that is direct economic impact to Miami. The Francis Suarez stock is up. I believe he'll win his re-election. I even believe that he has gubernatorial material. And si se hace el logo, Nikki Haley nominates him to be the VP. But that takes a lot of what ifs. That's just speculation. That's all speculation.
Right.
But I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
You know, but the only thing that Francis has against him is that he's soon going to be too Hollywood. So because all this fame comes at a cost, all this stock rise comes with a lot. It comes at a price because then you'll be getting detached from that base.
Right.
But if he runs for governor, to be honest, his base isn't going to mean much because you need a whole new state. You got to get new voters. Strategies change.
Right.
Let's go to Congress, and I think we'll finish with Congress. Maria Salazar has been one of the most vocal voices in the Cuban conversation. So why don't you start with your thoughts on Maria, and then we kind of reverse backwards, because I worked the campaign against her and lost.
Oh.
No. Oh. Hey, no. Ooh. Your L's are your best W's because you learn. And through these case studies, we'll keep going. Yeah. And I honestly think Maria is great. Like,
I was going to say, you asked me for my opinion on her. And as far as I can tell, I think she's great. I think she's obviously very qualified. And based on what she's expressed over the last couple of weeks, she is definitely a doer. And she's not able to call it for what it is, which I think I and many people can appreciate, because we're so tired of the, whitewashing of issues and just putting things in the back. So I think that her being so direct is something that I can really appreciate.
So interestingly enough, I like I said, openly and I worked the campaign directly against Maria Elvira Salazar. So I worked for Donna. And what I can tell you is, and that I can appreciate from Salazar, is that because of her experience in the media, before, as she was a reporter, she even interviewed Fidel.
Yeah.
She's very good with the press. She has experience, and that's why she catches all this smoke for being opportunistic or this.
I wouldn't agree with that.
No. The premise here, so just so we can so I can make you understand. The premise is that because she has all this experience, she performs extremely well. I don't think that's a result of abuse. I think that's just what it is. Like, if you're a doctor, you're going to know more about medicine than this. If you're a reporter, you're going to know how to be good on the news. But what I really liked about Maria is her ability to take it not just here in Miami, but in D.C. She's been the most vocal voice in D.C., in my opinion, both on the floor and also in her interactions with people on the island. There are a number of characters in the ecosystem that is the Cuban political environment, if you will. So Maria is one of them. You also have Carlos Jimenez. So those are the two major congressional districts in Miami-Dade County. House District, it's Florida Congressional District 26 and 27. 26 is Carlos, 27, or am I about reverse? Again, look, even it's confusing. It's confusing. Yeah. Whatever. It's 26 and 27. And like I said, you have to understand it. The way how voters behave is weird because Biden, federal, they're both federal, but United States president wins, but yet in these districts, the Republican wins.
Yes.
So when people say that Cubans are these super hardline voters, it's not true. Because a Cuban will vote for a Republican in this position and a Democrat in this. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people are by party.
Yeah.
But if I could take it back to the elected officials, they keep organizing. They participate in protests and they do press releases. But you have to understand, they can't do anything. Let's be really clear here. The most they can do is exactly what they're doing now, and that's bringing attention, diverting influence. That is their job. To get you to feel something, to see something, to act.
To care.
Because at the end of the day, America cannot intervene into Cuba. We would break a lot of international laws. The only people that can intervene in Cuba are like multilateral agencies like the United Nations. But ironically, Cuba sits on the Human Rights Council. So that's not going to get anywhere.
That's another question for another day. But how does a country like Cuba get to sit on such council?
Influence.
How?
Your friends.
How?
Because Russia and China also sit there, and there's a greatly vested interest in making sure.
I understand all those.
I'm not too knowledgeable on the international stuff.
Real answers, but I don't. But they don't make sense logically.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
It's really easy to cover your tracks if you're the guy that has the camera, has all the tools.
Of course.
And that's how you're able to have such long periods of time of uninterrupted regime.
Yeah.
And now is when they're starting to see pressure. So again, we need internet, we need outside pressure, but if we don't keep the same energy, it's not going to happen.
So what do you suggest to everyday people,
I wish the NRA would put their guns where their mouth is and just give me a bunch of guns and I'm like, yo, NRA, you really want to help out? Hear me out. So the NRA gives us a bunch of guns,
okay,
and then we just go run into Cuba. Like, go ahead, deal, Ali.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's not a good solution, and that'd break a lot of laws, and then we would be like traitors of America and stuff, because if we like cross international waters, and
such
no, but
nonsense.
okay, the answer is not much. The answer really is not much. Send your love, send your prayers to your family, but moreover, keep posting. I think being vocal and not letting it die.
That's what
keep
the
talking
everyday
about
person
it.
can do.
Keep itching. Keep feeling shitty. Keep it. Pero talk about it.
Right.
Because this vocalization, the same way how when any major traumatic experience, social media helps. It helps. I think this is one of the very good powers of social media. The power to be in that moment.
Right.
And the Cuban government has stayed in this moment because they've never had a checks and balance. They've been unfettered. Every time that because again, you only know about these atrocities por cuento. What my mom tells me, what your mom tells you, what you hear, what you heard, what you saw.
Yeah.
But now that there's checks and we got receipts.
Right.
And all it's going to take is...
It's hard to turn a blind eye now.
And listen, it's the same thing. It just takes one incident. The same way how it just takes one viral video for this podcast to go insane. The same way how one viral video of a man getting his air cut out for 9 minutes and 48 seconds literally changed a political landscape.
Right.
I bet one video from Cuba could do the same effect. When? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that's such a wise advice to
just continue to talk.
To tell people.
Don't stop talking.
Right. Because that's the easiest and most
keep
realistic thing that we can
keep
do.
Feeling it. Keep feeling that desire for freedom. Keep yearning, because ultimately that will manifest itself into more tangible results. And that's why I was very disappointed in Biden's ability to not extend internet. It really shouldn't be hard. We have literal land in Cuba.
We've done it before.
You just put a tower and just put unfettered internet, and the problem will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And that doesn't break any laws. That doesn't do anything. You're not breaking nobody's sovereignty. It's radio waves, big fella. You know what I mean?
And like you said, they own land there.
Bro,
like Guantanamo.
This is not it's not gonna be.
Yeah.
Like, they have done more for less, because when somebody, and again, this is something the Republicans did, so I can critique both sides extremely well. I think my phone died. But when Republicans heard whispers of weapons of mass destruction, we mobilized an army. No United Nations. So
we took care of it.
So with that, if we want to take care of this issue, keep supporting your friends, families in Cuba,
right.
But more importantly, keep posting, keep using
What
the
about
hashtags.
the suppression of the hashtags? How do we get around that issue?
You mean like with the Twitter and the tech companies?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Make new hashtags until those get suppressed, and then make.
Well, if you think about it, the whole point of using the same hashtag is to keep going. Yeah, I think eventualmente, I think in a
we're about to close. Yeah.
Yeah, but with that, this was great. This was fun.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
No, and I think we should do like a follow up. Maybe like once a month.
Yes.
We do like a little Cuba report.
Well, I was just gonna say, for everybody that's with us on YouTube, if they could post questions, comments.
And then the next time we do this, maybe it's something that we didn't cover or something that was a little bit...
Right, you can help us address it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that would be great. And obviously, let's continue the conversation down below, because this topic
it's gonna keep developing.
Has so many facets and complexities that it's impossible to address in one episode.
No.
We will also link all your information if people want to reach out to you for questions that you are very qualified to answer, because I'm not. I can't answer a lot of political questions. I think that would be wise, so they can get to you.
Miami lit. Alrighty,
and I want to dedicate this episode to Cubans all over, not just Cubans in Miami. I know we talked about Cubans here,
Cubans in Spain, there's Cubans in Africa, there's Cubans in Israel,
and what it
Cubans
means to us. But we've been, as a result of a great government, which has been spread all over the globe, So I wanna dedicate this episode to everybody who's living on the island, off the island, who feels like they've lost that connection. Don't. We're still here. We're all together, and hopefully we will see a good end to this. Yeah.
It's 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, I want to stay on the positive side.
Yeah, Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.